landing and starting fees have to be increased because they were so low in Leipzig-Halle, which made it a very attractive airport for the oldest and dirtiest airplanes that you have.
We love the fact that you love freedom.
Welcome to another episode of our series. Today we talk about the impact of logistics capitalism in the city of Leipzig. Leipzig is a city in eastern Germany. Today it is home to some of the biggest global players in the logistics business, including DHL and Amazon, among several pharmaceutical companies. Their presence there and the way they conduct their business sparked the anger of many residents and workers who in the last years organized strikes, protests, and other actions to express their indignation at how things are run in the city. Our guests today, Elisabeth Reckmann and Hans Stephan, take part in these actions, and we are grateful to have them with us today.
Welcome and thank you for accepting our invitation.
Thank you for having us. For having us.
Hello,
So,
and thank you.
hello. So, Hans, Elisabeth, is Leipzig a logistics capital in Europe today?
Yes, um, I would say so that Leipzig became in the last 3 decades a very important logistic cluster, a place with many different warehouses and logistics infrastructures. I think the most important of these infrastructures is the airport Leipzig-Halle, which is called in Yatta LEJ. Uh, it is the second biggest cargo airport in Germany and the fifth biggest in Europe. 40,000 workers in the logistics sector. I would like to give you a small overview about our logistics cluster now.
Yeah, please
So
do,
we will.
and also clarify for us a bit the terms the logistic cluster, fix, choke point, and so on and so forth.
Yes. That's a very good point for the beginning. Yeah, logistics cluster is a concept by the American Marxist Moody, and he observes the emergence of logistics cluster um, on um, on the on the crossings of logistical routes all over the world. And we see there agglomerations of warehouses where thousands of workers come together, yes, in warehouses and share common experiences. And we see such a logistic cluster also in Leipzig today. And yes, maybe let's go back to the map, and then I will also clarify other concepts. Okay, so here you see a little tour which includes all the important logistic sites, or let's say the biggest logistic sites in Leipzig. And first of all, we see that actually all of them are situated in the north of the city. And this is and the reason for that is that after the reunification, there were actually so-called green meadows. So there was cheap land, and logistic companies invested there to build up their infrastructure. Because during GDR time, it was mentioned in the introduction, um, Leipzig was already an important industrial zone of the GDR, but the sites, mining, and plants for machine production were situated in the south and in the west of the city. So, in the beginning, the logistic firms they found in the area cheap land, but also important for logistic companies. is that they find cheap labor. And they found a lot of cheap labor because after the fall of the Berlin Wall, a process of deindustrialization has started in the region because the machine production companies, the big industrial plants and the mines could not compete anymore on a free market economy. And so many workers lost their jobs. And furthermore, many workers who worked for the state in GDR times also lost their jobs. So there was a big reservoir of cheap labor, yes, and workers for the warehouses. And maybe a third important point is that the regional and the state government invested a lot in logistics infrastructure. For example, they invested more than 1 billion euro in the emergence, in the development of the airport Leipzig-Halle, but also they invested in highways. And yes, and this is a very important precondition for logistics economy as well. But now let's maybe have a closer look to the single sites of the logistic cluster. In the tour in the east with the Amazon warehouse, which is called Amazon LHA1. This has opened in 2006, and it was Amazon's second fulfillment center, so like the big warehouses in the Amazon network in Germany. And here in 2013, a strike has started, and the strike goes until today. But we will come to this strike. I think we will come to the strike later. So I want to switch to another facility. You see Momok Services. Momok Services is a re-commerce company which has opened in 2010. So they sell second-hand books, second-hand clothing. But more important is for the tour that they have opened their facility in the former Quelle warehouse. Quelle was in the 80s and 90s the biggest German catalog mail order company. And they have opened in 1959 their facility, and many, especially female workers, found their jobs. So that was actually the first warehouse in Leipzig. And maybe you are a little bit surprised that I also put car plants in our tour, like BMW and Porsche, because car industry is also very important for the local economy. But for us, it's important that we have not only direct employed car workers in these factories, but we have also many workers who work for so-called third party third party providers. So the
What does it mean? This?
The logistic services, they are outsourced. So the car producer, they take the parts of the production who produce the most value, and the parts who produce less value, they are outsourced to these logistic providers. And we have also between 4,000 and 5,000 workers who work in the car factories, in the car plants, but they have contracts with these logistic firms. And of course, the workers there, they earn less than their colleagues who are directly employed at the car factories. And then maybe let's go to the DHL hub, which is situated at the airport LEJ. I think this is the most important warehouse in the area. Yes, it's in the west of the map, and they have 8,000 workers, and this warehouse is a so-called choke point in the in the global network of DHL Express. So DHL Express has 3 big intercontinental hubs. One is in Cincinnati, one is in Hong Kong, and one is in Leipzig. And so all the goods from the European market, for the European customers of DHL Express, are brought to Leipzig, and there they are redistributed to the regional hubs, like in Paris, London, Copenhagen, Bucharest, of course. And so if there's a strike, or for example, and if this point of the network is blocked, this would cause chaos. And this is the idea of a choke point, that those are central points in logistics networks. And I think we will talk more about DHL Express and its consequences for the regions later. And to end my tour, I want just to say 2 sentences about My Theresa, which is the newest warehouse in Leipzig, because I think you can see the social antagonisms of logistics very clear here. My Theresa is also an e-commerce company for luxury clothing. They have customers all over the world which order expensive trousers, t-shirts, handbags, shoes. And the point is that more than 90% of the workers there have a migration background. That means they are not German citizens, do not have German citizen rights, and they work for minimum wage. So I think that this is very clear, the class contradictions of those logistics network.
Where is this on the map?
And on the very west, it's the last point where you see the red this red sign.
Yeah, right.
So, and it's closely interlinked to DHL, of course, because that's the reason, I think, why they have the warehouse here, because so they can offer their customers that the goods are brought very fast to them. If they need in 24 hours a new handbag, then they can order it at the My Theresa website.
Now, let's talk about the cargo airport that the federal state of Saxony wants to expand. Elisabeth, in 2021, a group of 51 activists protested against this project, demanding its immediate stop. This year in May, there was another action where people demanded again that the authorities stop the expansion of the airport. The list of demands included some other interesting things, like, for instance, that the airport should allow only civil cargos to be transported, so no weapons, no military equipment. What's the problem, in fact, with the airport, in your view?
Mm-hmm. So for me, the biggest problems are actually the climate emissions. That's how I started to be concerned about these expansion plans. This is something the Leipzig-Halle has in common with many other airports. Although, as Hans showed, it's a very special airport because of being an international hub, cargo hub. Makes it necessary that there is no night flight restriction. So there we come to the second biggest what makes it an issue for the residents. But first about the climate, in case you're not into the topic, climate, like aviation, is a growing sector. And around 6% of all human-caused global heating is based on aviation. So when you look at the German climate footprint, aviation is comparable to car traffic already. And this is often neglected because people look only on the CO2 emissions. But aircraft also produces condensation trails and NOx, and these are also heating processes. Yeah, so then when the climate negotiations, the Paris Agreement happened, it was noticeable that aviation actually played no role in it. So it was it's nothing that was regulated by international agreements, and also on the European level. Just recently, it was in the news that European countries refuse kerosene tax. So there you see that it is a sector that is highly subventioned by states, and although it's a growing sector, what makes it a very important issue when we talk about climate justice. So it's also very unjust, not only because of the subventions, but also because only 1% of population produces 50% of commercial aviation emissions. Like most people have never set foot on an airplane, but a minority flies so much that they actually cause the problems related to aviations.
But then there's also the problem
Um,
with the companies, no, that they are not taxed. For instance, all the cargo flights, they are not really taxed, or they are not, if I understood correctly from what I read sent by you, they are not paying the tax for carbon emission. Did I understand correctly, or?
There are different taxes. So one
Okay,
is the general consumer tax,
right.
and this is something interesting that international flights, you don't pay this consumer tax on it. And then there is a tax based on, or a fee, you could say, a fee based on the emissions and also the noise pollution, which is paid to the airport. Yeah, and airports, of course, are public owned. And this is one demand that we also had, and it's partly answered to by the regional government. It was that these landing and starting fees have to be increased because they were so low in Leipzig-Halle, which made it a very attractive airport for the oldest and dirtiest airplanes that you have.
Now let's speak a bit about the residents and the protesters in Leipzig. What are their main demands, and what's the main trigger of the for the local population?
Yeah. So if we talk about the local population, it is quite it's honest to say that it's just a minority of them. So we had a big wave of protests in 2008 and 9, right after DHL located in Leipzig. And now we had a big protest wave again, starting with 2019, but a little bit more driven by the younger climate activists. So the main concern is actually the nightly noise pollution, because like you can say approximately 1 million residents are affected to it. 6,000 are highly affected to it, and this is really a problem. So I totally acknowledge this problem because it's between 1 o'clock in the morning and 5 o'clock in the morning where the machines land in Leipzig, um, get redistributed, like filled, and you know what I mean, yeah, and then start from Leipzig again. So it's the core, the sleeping hours actually, and this is a big problem. And for many other airports in Germany, there are night flight restrictions. So that's what the residents also demand for. So this is their most important issue, and a little bit like less important is the preservation of biotopes, the um, the I don't know how do you say it when when is betonized, like when something is built and there cannot be any nature anymore. So this is a secondary concern of them.
Right. And maybe very shortly, if you can answer it, what was the response of the authorities? Like, for instance, police response to the actions by the local people.
Yeah, so in the first wave of protests in 2008, actually DHL itself, they reacted, which is very interesting. They wrote letters to the demonstrators that they had to sign that they stop protesting. So of course this is totally against human rights, normal democratic rights, right of protesting, and of course this was led to a shrinking of the protest. And the police violence is something else. And the police violence was a topic in 2021 when some climate activists blocked also a street, like it was not private ground, it was public ground, but right in front of the DHL headquarters. And this was, of course, a disturbance, although it was only 1.5 hours, but this led to police arresting all these people because of yeah, they wanted to identify them, and this was in acknowledging repression because things happened like forced blood taking. You know what I mean? They took the blood of them, which is actually not done in Germany. Yeah, so yeah, it was also interesting that police acted only on demand of DHL itself. So they were
Right.
all the information they had from DHL. So they acted in favor of a company.
Right. Hans, let me come back to you. You point to the ability of many companies in Leipzig to move their logistic chains using infrastructures located in Poland, just across the border. This led the Amazon workers to strike in the past years. What was the outcome of these strikes, and what happened? Could you tell us a bit how this conflict, work conflict, labor conflict, evolved?
Yes, thank you for the question. Yes, it's a little bit the other way around, but I will start in the very beginning. Um, so in general, since almost 10 years, labor unions have started to put organizational resources to organize, to unionize logistic sites and warehouses. So Verdi, for example, at DHL and Amazon. I will come to this in a few moments. And also the IG Metall, that's also important. They also started a union organizing in the third-party logistic suppliers, which I mentioned earlier. And they founded some works councils in these logistics sites, and those works council they could improve some working conditions. For example, they could improve individual data protection. And like algorithmical control um, and surveillance, which is a very important topic at Amazon, for example. Or they could act against spontaneous overhours. But this is not enough for the workers. And so in some of the warehouses, they started to strike. So strike movements emerged. And as I mentioned earlier, one of the most important, because the strike takes so long, it takes 11 years, is Amazon. And the Verdi and its members called for the first time for a strike on the 14th of May 2013. Yes, and until today, Amazon has not signed any collective bargaining contract. with the union. Yes, for different reasons. Of course, one important reason is that this new economy companies like Amazon, they have a very strong anti-union ideology. So only if they are obtained by governments, they will start negotiations with any unions, and this is not necessary in Germany. But now let's come back to your question, and that's the second aspect. The second point is that, as I mentioned earlier, the Leipzig site was was the second one in Germany. But since the strike started in 2013, Amazon has opened much more warehouses in Germany, but also in the German-Polish border region. And the workers, firstly, they earn much less than their German colleagues. They earn the half or even one third of the German wage. And or the strike law in Poland is very restrictive. So it's very difficult for the unions to start a strike there. And now the situation is like that. If a warehouse in Germany, for example in Leipzig, but there are also other striking warehouses in Germany, if they are on strike, then the customer, in the most cases, the customer will not notice that, because the orders, they will be delivered from other warehouses from Poland, for example. And of course, this structure of the network, it has no choke points actually, and this really weakens basically the strike movement.
Now, of course, one of the challenges is that Amazon works transnationally, so they can operate like this, like moving from Poland to Germany and maybe to other places. Is there an attempt on behalf of the trade unions to also organize transnationally as a response to how capital organizes? Like specifically, is there a connection and a cooperation between the trade unions in Poland and in Germany?
Yes. Let me answer a little bit general again, because we have of course these problems. We have these companies who are organized in global production networks, or in the case of Amazon, in global logistic networks. So, in all European Amazon workers work for the same market, for the same customers. So the capital is organized, or the enterprises are organized transnational, but the main focus of the labor unions is on the national level. Yes, and of course this is a problem, that labor unions have problems to attack the firms on this transnational level. And there is a movement in Amazon, and yeah, I'm active in this movement, which is called Amazon Workers in International, AWI. So it's a movement from workers from below, to overcome those national borders. And it has started in 2015 with meetings between Polish. In 2015, the warehouses in Poland had opened. So it began with meetings between Polish and German Amazon workers. And they just started to exchange, to talk about tactics, to talk about strategies. And workers from other countries also joined the network, like workers from the USA, Canada, Spain, France, India. In our last meeting, we meet every 6 months. In our last meeting, also workers from India took part of our meetings. And yes, and those are places for exchange and to find common demands. Yes, and one thing that we did, yeah, you also see it in the slides, is that we did this newspaper, for example, the Amazon Worker. Yes, and this is maybe, and we try to organize ourselves, or as working class, as well on a transnational level. And
Maybe
of
one
course,
last- Maybe one last question to this topic. Did you reach any agreement, or did you manage to force the CEOs of Amazon or the company to come to the table and speak with the workers?
No, only in national contexts where Amazon was forced to bargain with the unions, like in Italy, for example. And maybe this is also a reason why Italian workers were not at our meetings. In all the countries, we have to be serious. We are the minority. Only maybe in very single warehouses, more than 50% of the workers are organized at the moment. But but the problem is, as for example, the Polish workers cannot strike, or our strike action are not coordinated on a transnational level, and I think we should change that. That weakens our strength against Amazon.
Right. Are there any legal or political instruments that you see that can be effective in order to address this question of transnational movement by capital? So in order to anchor capital and to force capital not to move away? Do you see it within the trade union international organization, or do you see maybe in future, in the near future?
I mean, of course, the trade unions. There's a trade union network also at Amazon, which is called the UniGlobal. UniGlobal is the international union of service sector unions. Of course, they want to have a sort of agreement of Amazon, and but as long as the labor unions do not have a common strategy, I think it will be very difficult. And so, only national solutions maybe. For example, the German government can obtain Amazon to sign a collective bargaining contract. But of course, this is not our transnational perspective on this issue.
Now, in regards to the climate class crisis generated by the expansion of logistics, the need for an alliance between the environmental movements and trade unions is to counteract the negative effects of these developments is more and more necessary. And it's more acute now with the rise of the far right in your part of the country, and not only. And when we refer to the far right, we first look at the labor and anti-migrant policies that they promote. From your experience in Leipzig, how can these agendas be brought together?
Climate and
So yeah,
labor, yeah.
I would answer to it that I think that it's very, very difficult to bring this together. So on the basis of the conversation that I had in my master thesis, climate emissions generally play a minor role for the workers of DHL Express. So they, like many people, they are very influenced by narratives of technocratic problem solving, and through better machines, through better airplanes, through alternative fuel, so which I would say are actually false solutions. Until now, there is no alternative to the kerosene-based flying. So, and especially with the workers in DHL Express in the international hub, I noticed that DHL was very successful in the last years in their internal communication. Yeah, and being perceived as a green company and being perceived also as a trustworthy employer. So although people are in a collective bargaining moment, and they want to improve some things, the employer has a good standing for them. It's a good employer, and the narrative of they brought employment to the region is very strong, although it's actually not true. They came to the region at a moment where the situation, was already better, and they came like in when all the infrastructure was there, and but this makes it very difficult to reach a consensus on the base of lot even outside of the company things have to change. Lot has to be changed, and on the other way, hardly no climate activists work at the hub and could start to organize there also for an interest of a reduction of aviation. So I think from a climate activist view, as we need such a fast reduction of aviation, there's actually no common ground. It's not like if you want to increase the appreciation of a branch, of an economic branch, like in the public transport sector or in the hospital care. This is a common ground for an alliance. Yeah. Also now with the GKN factory in Italy, maybe you've heard of it. Yeah. The shutdown of a company while the workers want to keep on producing something. This is also a good moment for an alliance. But reduction of a sector while there's actually no alternative, which would need the same amount of workers, is actually not a really good moment for a common fight or common struggle, at least in the society in which we live now. So I think it maybe in a society where acceleration and growth and capital accumulation are not the biggest imperatives. I could imagine that there could be alliances between airport workers and especially in a cargo airport and climate activists. But I think you agree with me that this is quite far away. So I really like the title you gave to our call today, with the love affair between logistics and capital. And so to conclude, I think in a possible situation of slow breakdown or dying off of capitalist transport systems. Only if this logistic capitalist love affair is stopped by some forces or urgencies. I could imagine that it could be a broad alliances. And it took me very long to come to this conclusion, but there are no empirical examples for alliances in the aviation sector. And it's very sad, but difficult. In a branch where many workers are immigrants and maybe not they don't want to work there for their whole life, because it's also very hard to work at night. There is, of course, a segregation of workers, which makes it even harder to struggle together on the workplace, like everywhere.
Yes, and I would say, it would be necessary, of course, to organize a space for for the climate movement, the residents of the airport, the workers, the unions, and to come together. But yes, but the question is how should that start? And it cannot start like in a fight for better working conditions in a hospital, which is very important for the society because yes, I'm not sure if we really want the air cargo logistics actually in the region, or if this is really something that we should politically struggle for, or at least an expansion of the logistics. And yes, so it should be a debate between all those actors about a greater uh, politic economic strategy, politic economic ideas. Yes, and of course, but I would say at the moment in the Saxonian situation, it seems for me a dream that those stakeholders, let's say, or these social groups come together and raise those very important questions.
Let's not stop dreaming. And I want to thank you both, Elizabeth and Hans, for this very interesting talk. For the people that are watching us, please go to the description box and you can find there the links to the Amazon Workers International, for instance, and other organizations they are part of. Elizabeth and Hans, thank you very much.
Thank you for the invitation. Thank you.